Hey everyone, it's JulieAnn. You are in my Brooklyn kitchen on this Sunday. I know what day it is this time around. On this Sunday, where I'm going to be joined with my friend Jen, who is going to bake lemon blueberry cupcakes with me, and we're going to talk about a couple of different frostings. And there is Jen. Hopefully, technology works in our favor. Wait, wrong. That was me, Jen. Sorry. I'm like, try to add. Hold on. Okay, this is where JulieAnn doesn't know how to. How does JulieAnn? I haven't done this in a while. I don't know how to add anybody. Hold on. Suddenly there's filters. You can already tell. Thanks, Jen. Thank you. I was about to say, you can already tell this is going to be a joy and a wonder. Going from doing this for like every weekend to once in a while Instagram updates is bad for JulieAnn because she doesn't understand technology. But I'm waiting for Jen to join. While we wait, preheat your ovens to 350 degrees. I've got Mary. Yay, Mary. And there's Jen.
I have to, you're right, I have to do it straight.
You flip it?
Yeah, so hang on.
Okay. All good. We can, while you do that, I will tell folks who eventually will join and or watch this that they need flour, sugar, butter, baking powder, salt, vanilla, lemon zest, juice of a lemon, some blueberries. You can use freeze-dried blueberries if you're feeling a little fancy today. And buttermilk or sour cream or yogurt or creme fraiche or whatever kinds of things you've got in your fridge. Even milk will work today as well as a liquid, or non-dairy milk if you want to be vegan about it. But we are going to make lemon blueberry cupcakes that, and I was just telling Jen, you can choose to frost. If you don't want to frost it, they're good enough as if you just want to have like a little tea cake. Otherwise, you can do a simple syrup on top to kind of preserve the moistness of the cake. I know I hate that word. The moistness of the cake. And then you can go ahead and add that in. And then we will frost it with cream cheese frosting. If you don't want to use cream cheese frosting, we can also talk about some crumbles that are kind of a little bit more reminiscent of muffins. So all of that in maybe less than an hour if Jen and I have our wits about us today and we can figure out our lives. But shall we begin? Everyone preheat your oven to 350. We're going to be using muffin pans today. This is a recipe that if you wanted to make a cake out of it, you potentially could, just like any recipe that calls for like cupcakes or cakes, you can convert it if you'd like. The recipe that I included should be about 12, give or take, depending on how much you fill the cupcake liner. But I'm using a regular, let me see if I can bring it forward. I'm just using a regular 12 muffin tin. It's just regular muffin tin. Some people have like the large ones, the 6-cup ones, those are fine too. It just depends on which size you want to use. I'm using cupcake liners. You don't necessarily have to if you grease your muffin tin well enough with like butter and all that, you know, flour, sugar, that kind of stuff. But I like cupcake liners, especially since we are making cupcakes. So I feel like the liner makes it less messy because we all know that there's lots of frosting on cupcakes. So that tends to be a little bit less messy if you have something to hold on to while you're trying to bite into the cupcake. So I've got some liners. I put some in already into my muffin tin. I preheated my oven to 350 degrees. I've got Karen. Hello, Karen. Welcome to the program. Oh, and if you've got eggs, I completely forgot to mention that you should take out your egg and make sure. We like working with room temp eggs. If it's just out of the fridge, though, it's not going to hurt anything. Don't worry about it. So I've also got an egg. All right. So we do our dry ingredients first. And Jen will stop me if I, completely mess up this recipe. Mary will stop me if I completely go off the rails like I normally do. And you guys all enter in comments as you see fit. So I am going to grab my dry ingredients. So we're looking at all-purpose flour for this recipe. About 1.5 cups. Now, like all flours, you could use a mixed match of flours. A lot of people like using sometimes a little bit of wheat flour to kind of hot the flour, make it healthy-ish into your baking, and you definitely can. I wouldn't use all wheat flour just because of the proteins in the flour. It might make it a little tough. So if you're going to do that, I would probably recommend either half and half regular all-purpose and a whole wheat flour, or using a pastry whole wheat flour, which won't be as tough. So that's that. Or you can also use self-rising flour, which is a whole other conversation in which you will not use baking powder and salt. Or if you want to be gluten-free, you can use almond flour. But for our purposes, 1.5 cups all-purpose flour. We are using 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to grab a whisk, which I totally forgot to take out earlier. You can do this all by hand, or you can utilize a standard hand mixer. But in this case scenario, just for the dry ingredients, I'm using a whisk. You can use a spatula, and if you don't even have that, you can use a spoon or a fork. I mean, let's be real. So let me see if I can show you my bowl after chattering about it too much. Okay, so in my bowl here, I'm about to add, I've got an actual mix of all-purpose flour, and I put a little bit of almond flour just for texture. So I'm going to go ahead and dump that in. That's 1.5 cups. And then I've also got 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, this is the conversation where I mentioned if you're using self-rising flour, you would usually omit or put less baking powder in. I would probably cut down the baking powder in that case scenario about 1 teaspoon. But in our case, because we are using regular flour, I'm using all the baking powder. And then you've got your salt. And those are all our dry ingredients. And what we're just going to do is we're just going to whisk that together so it's incorporated. And then we're just going to set it aside while we mix everything else. So far, so good, hopefully.
Yes.
Good.
I guess I'm the only one who's going to answer you.
I know you're the only one who's going to answer me. Mary will say something in the comments, I'm sure, as she normally does. So I've got my flour sorted. And then I'm going to put away my dry ingredients, and we're going to go ahead and focus on the butter and sugar. So in this case scenario, we're actually using butter, and because of the way that butter is, it should be room temp. It's easier to cream when it's room temp. It's a little, you could technically use out of the fridge butter, but out of the fridge butter will definitely be harder, and it'll take longer to cream. There's some methods that you can utilize, and I think Mary last time, mentioned a couple of different ways that you can go ahead and take your butter and get it to temp fairly quickly without like sticking the whole thing in the microwave, which can tend to be a little bit problematic just because you might melt some of your butter. But you know, when you're home baking, use what you got, do what you got to do. I'm using regular butter here. You're using a whole stick, 8 tablespoons in this recipe. And we're just going to dump that right into the mixer. And we're going to go ahead and cream that with sugar. And what we want to do is we want to aerate the mixture, the butter and the sugar really well and incorporate it so that way you get like the granules of sugar into the butter very well. Because if you don't, I don't know if if you undermix something when you're making cake, sometimes you'll get like globs of like clumps of sugar in your cake, and that's because it hasn't been aerated enough. So we're going to do our best. So we're going to take that, and we're going to take about 3/4 cups of sugar. Now, I mentioned before that I started with, I think, 1/2 cup on the recipe, and then I adjusted that. And the adjustment is based on a couple of different things. You can use anywhere from 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup, depending on sweetness level. I would probably just go for, if you're doing this for the very first time out and you've never done this before, I would stick with 3/4 cup, because then the next time you make something, you can decide it needed less sugar. Because the bad thing about baking is you won't know until after you've baked it and you've eaten it, right? So right. I say 3/4 cup. I tend to err on a little bit of less sugar sometimes when I am using things like a drizzle or a frosting, because that's going to add in the sweetness. And for me personally, I hate overly sweet cupcakes. Some people love it, like love just eating the frosting and nothing else. I am not that person.
I am not that person either.
Sometimes I wish I could, but like the sugar rushes straight to my brain and I'm just like, I gotta stop. Delicious, but I gotta stop. So I am actually going to err. I said 3/4 cup, and that could be a mix of any like regular granulated sugar. If you don't want to use refined sugars, honey or maple syrup will work here. You just need to go ahead and cut it down a little bit. I would recommend probably using maybe just 1/2 cup in the liquid form. So any maple syrup. You can use 1 coconut palm sugar or sugar as well. I'm going to do a mix of granulated cane sugar and a little bit of coconut palm. So I'm using about 1/2 cup of granulated, and I'm using about 1/4 cup of coconut palm. So I'm going to go ahead and dump that in to my mixer as well. I know Mary was like, you've gotten older and you don't want it to be so sweet. I know. Isn't that so sad? When I was younger, I just wanted a sugar bomb all the time. I was like, bring it on. But I'm using my handy dandy stand mixer today. And again, electric mixer is the way to go if you don't have a stand mixer. Just use a handheld mixer. And if you don't have that, you can cream this by hand with your arms. You know, use your elbow grease.
A lot of work.
I mean, if you want to work out your arms, it's arm day. This is a good way to do it. You're going to cream it, but it's going to take just a little bit longer than if you're doing it by machine. Because I've got my stand mixer here, I'm just going to let the stand mixer do the work. But I'm going to go ahead and dump in, like I mentioned, it's going to be 3/4 cups of sugar. So I suppose I should show you the bowl. It would be helpful to show the bowl. So I already put in my butter here, and I told you I'm using a mix of cane sugar and coconut palm. So I'm dumping that in. And we're just going to go ahead and mix this until it's really incorporated and aerated. A lot of people, I think, sometimes undermix their butter and their sugar because they just think to themselves, oh, if I overmix something, it's not going to come out as well. This is the stage where overmixing is not going to hurt your cake. It's when we add the flour that we have to be a little bit more careful in the incorporation. But right now, this can be thoroughly, thoroughly mixed. You don't have to be afraid of overmixing. So I'm going to put this on lock. Start out slow before you do anything else, because it's going to come at you. I'm going to increase the speed. Give it a good mix. And again, it's going to look a little curdled. What's going on here, because I am utilizing, oh hey Catherine, because I'm utilizing some coconut palm sugar, mine's gonna be a little bit darker than what you're seeing probably at home if you're not using that kind of a sugar. So as you can see, it's starting to incorporate themselves, but you're seeing a little bit of like large pockets of granules of sugar. So I'm gonna mix that just a little bit longer to incorporate it down. And it's, like I said, don't be afraid of doing this for a little bit longer than you think. I like getting it pretty creamy. As you saw earlier, as I scream on top of my mixer, as you saw earlier, it was clumpy looking. I think the more you mix it in, it's going to aerate a little bit more and it's going to spread out. So let me show you what that's looking like. And then we're going to scrape the bottom. So that's what it's looking like on my side. It looks pretty good, actually. Properly creamed. I don't see any random sugar at the bottom or butter that was haphazard. And then I'm just going to go ahead and dump that in. So, and again, if you don't want to make as many as 12 cupcakes, you can have this recipe. Completely up to you how you'd like to do this. All right. So I creamed my butter and my sugar. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add my egg. As everyone knows, I get slightly paranoid about eggs and the way that I crack my egg because of eggshells. So I tend to crack my egg in a separate container and then dump it in into the mixture. So I'm going to actually crack my egg right here on the counter. Rather forcefully hard, I would add. That was messy. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my egg and I'm just going to dump that right into the bowl with all my other ingredients. And then at this point in time too, I'm going to go ahead and put in my lemon zest. So it's zest of a lemon, which gives you about a tablespoon, I would imagine, about a tablespoon, half a tablespoon to a tablespoon, depending on how much you zested. So I'm going to dump that in as well. And then the juice of 1 lemon, and that tends to be about a tablespoon or so as well. Could sometimes be 2 tablespoons, depending on, again, how you juiced your lemon. And in my case scenario, mine's almost 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to dump that in. And we're going to go ahead and give that a little bit of a stir. And it's definitely going to look curdled. But give it a good swish for about like a minute or so. And I would scrape down. If you're using a stand mixer, you definitely scrape down as you go along. If you're using a hand mixer, you've got a little bit more control of how you're mixing it. But again, it's going to look really curdled, not appetizing. You're still okay. Just let it mix until it's pretty good. It can be fairly wet too, I would say. All right. And this is the point, if you're using vanilla or almond extract, you can go ahead and put that in as well. I believe it's a teaspoon. I'm going to go ahead and put in a teaspoon on my side. If I can get my teaspoon.
It says two teaspoons.
Two?
You're going to just tap it?
Yeah,
it says two. Two of vanilla or, 2 teaspoons.
Okay, then go with 2. Go with what Jen says versus what JulieAnn says. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and what Jen was saying too is you can mix and match your extracts. If you don't have vanilla on hand, if you have almond extract, that's a good one to put in as well. If you don't want to have a forward almond flavor, I would say use a little bit less of almond extract. Vanilla extract is kind of good to put more in because it'll enhance all the other flavors, but almond tends to overpower some of the other flavors. So if you're just using almond extract, I would only use about a teaspoon of that. But you can mix and match. I would go like a teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of almond extract. Be fancy if you want to be fancy. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that a little bit of mix. And now my mixture looks really curdled, like extremely curdled. Like if you're making cheese and, you know, there'd be like some whey and like on top, it just like, it looks not appetizing. But that's okay because we're about to mix it into other things. So we're going to go ahead and take our flour mixture. The other thing that we're using today is we are using as our liquid buttermilk or milk. If you've got it, or any non-dairy milk, you can utilize that as well. Or if you've got sour cream, yogurt, not Greek yogurt, not super thick yogurt, just regular plain yogurt, or creme fraiche, you can use creme fraiche as well if you've got that in your fridge at random. And again, any of those things will work here. We need about half of a cup of that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that out of the fridge. So in my case scenario, I went ahead and I had some sour cream that I wanted to get rid of, and I mixed it with a little bit of the buttermilk that I had in my fridge to make half a cup. And so like I said, you can mix and match a little bit. If you were using just sour cream or just like a creme fraiche or a yogurt, make sure you mix it really well so it kind of liquefies just a little bit. You can always add in a splash of milk, you know, to kind of get it a little bit less thick as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And again, you're going to add in about a cup. So what we're going to do in this cupcake is we're going to do the alternating flour liquid method. You are going to dump half of the flour, then half of the liquid, then half of the flour, and then the rest of the liquid. And that's how we're going to go ahead and mix this in. And the reason why we're doing that is because we don't want to incorporate the flour all at once, because you don't want to overmix your cake. That's what makes it a little tougher. So when you overmix it, the gluten starts getting mixed together, and then, you know, you want a light kind of a cake. We want it to not be so tough. We're going to, I don't want to say undermix it because that's not the word either, but we want to go ahead and make sure that we're evenly mixing without overmixing. I know that sounded complicated, didn't it? In my head, that sounded complicated. I was like, that sounds complicated. But we're going to go ahead and start with the flour. So I'm going to go ahead and dump in. I'm actually going to take it off my stand mixer because I'm not going to utilize. I'm going to mix this by hand. Mostly because I want a little bit more control and while I look at it, but I'm also just doing it so you can see. But you certainly can do this with a stand mixer or a hand mixer if you don't want to go ahead and do that by hand. I like doing it a little bit by hand so I can control it a little bit better. So I'm going to start with the flour, all right? And like I said, we're going to take half of the flour, and then we're going to do half of the liquid, and then half of the flour, and then half of the liquid. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. Now, I was telling Jen that earlier you can use freeze-dried blueberries to enhance the blueberry-esque flavor of the cake. And freeze-dried blueberries, really easy to find in your local grocery store with all the dried fruit, usually, and buy the nuts. And all you're going to do is you're going to crush them. So when you buy them, they actually still look like berries, like, you know, they're whole, right? All you do is crush them, and what it does is going to add the flavor of blueberry without adding into your mix, which Mary can explain the science behind the liquid dry mix situation. I certainly have no idea how that works. I just do. So because I went ahead and I crushed some earlier, I just put it in my mixer and crushed it, but you can also crush it by hand. It's not difficult to sort of smash them together. Put it in like a Ziploc bag and just like smash it down. But I used my mixer, and I went ahead and took about a quarter cup of that, of the blueberries, crushed them, and I'm about to dump it into my dry mix. That was optional. Again, you don't have to do it. I just do it because I like the additional blueberry flavor, and you just mix it into your dry mixture before we dump it all in. So mine's gonna look kind of purpley. All right, so I'm gonna take half of my dry mixture, now that I've confused everyone. I'm gonna take half of my dry mixture into my curdled mixture right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and dump that in. Like I said, about half. You can eyeball it. That looks like about half. Maybe a little more. That looks like about half. Okay. And then we're gonna go ahead. I'm just have a spatula, and I'm just gonna stir. I'm gonna take this off of the stand so you can see it a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and stir this. I don't have to be delicate about it, but just make sure that all the flour is incorporated before we add in the liquid. All right. And then now I'm going to go ahead and add in my liquid. And like I said, it's about half a cup. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a quarter cup of liquid. And I'm just going to dump that right in. And then I'm going to mix that together. And again, you'll start seeing now that you've added the liquid, it's going to loosen up the batter. Don't be afraid of the color of my batter because of the crushed blueberries. Mine is going to be very purple. Okay. Jen, is yours looking more yellow?
Yeah, mine's yellow.
Yep. Okay. So it should be loose. All right. Now we're going to add in the rest of the flour.
I don't know how to show you.
And then we're going to mix that together. And that's going to be thick. So again, it's going to loosen up once we add the liquid again. So I'm going to get it where it's pretty much mixed in, and then I'm going to add more liquid, and that's another quarter cup liquid. And I'm going to mix that together. Pretty fairly thick-ish.
Yeah, mine got real thick now when I added the rest of the flour.
Okay, yeah, and then the milk should loosen it up. So it should be fairly, it's not going to be very, like, mine's pretty thick. It's not going to be very wet, okay? Next, I've got fresh blueberries, but you can also use frozen blueberries. That's totally okay. A trick for blueberries and putting it into batter is you can go ahead and mix this with about a tablespoon or two of flour. Actually, I'll grab some more now. And the reason why you do that, and this is a tablespoon of flour that I'm about to dump in there, and the reason why you do that is because if you mix it with just a little bit of flour, when it melds in, I'm just going to mix this by hand actually with my finger. When it goes into the batter, when it bakes, it won't just go to the bottom of the cupcake. So I'm just going to mix, just to give it a quick stir. And then I'm going to take my blueberries, this is about a cup, like so, and I'm going to fold it in. So what that means is I'm going to go under and then over. And the reason why is if I do more than that, it will crush the blueberries. So you're going to go under and over, just until it's combined. Ooh, see how I found just pockets of flour down there? Good thing I'm doing this under over. And then that should be good. Okay, it should be fairly thick. All right, it shouldn't be that wet. If it's too wet, I wouldn't worry so much. But because I use the mix of yogurt and, or you'd rather sour cream and a little bit of buttermilk, mine's a little bit thicker than probably some other folks, because if you're using straight liquid milk or buttermilk, it might be a little bit looser. Hopefully that didn't confuse everybody. But it shouldn't be super wet, is basically what I'm saying.
No, I use sour cream and mine is really thick. Can you see it?
Let me see.
I don't know how to make it. Can you see it?
Yeah. Lift it up with a spoon and then drop it, Jen. Let's see what it looks like when you do that.
Well, hold on, because I'm moving my iPad. Let me see if I can do it on here. So what'd you say? Lift it up with a spoon?
Yeah, so lift up the batter with a spoon and drop it. That's not that bad. It's not that bad. If you feel like it's still a little too thick, and I say this like it's cooking and you can just go ahead and fix it like that. You can add a little splash more of like milk, but it shouldn't be thin, is what I'm saying. This is not a thin batter.
Okay, I'm gonna put some in.
I would do like a splash. And the reason why I say that, because Jen used sour cream, it's a lot thicker than if you're using buttermilk or milk. Milk or buttermilk will be very liquidy, right? So it's going to incorporate and be a little bit less thick than what Jen is experiencing now. I used a mix of both, so mine's in that in-between stage. Mine is fairly thick. See how it's like it's kind of going to drop a little bit? Yeah, so it's like pretty thick. And like I said, you can go ahead and alleviate that just a little bit, because I like adding a tablespoon or two like milk into like the sour cream yogurt. And actually I'll show you guys what that looks like. I'll just dump in a little bit more to loosen it up. But it should not be super thin. In any case, it should not be super thin. Okay. So everything looks incorporated. So I'm going to show everyone my batter again. Very purple because I added in the freeze-dried. Now I'm going to go ahead and take all that, and I'm going to grab my muffin tins. We preheated our oven to 350 degrees, and we are going to do this for about 17 to 20 minutes, 22 minutes. I like erring on less time and checking it early just to see, because everyone's ovens are different. So depending on your location and where you're at, sometimes it can be a little bit, depending on the climate and the altitude, can affect your oven. And Mary's right. If you're adding more liquid, no more than a teaspoon to a tablespoon at a time. Just don't dump a whole bunch. And you're only doing it just to loosen it up a little, okay? So
how come I can't see a chat? I don't see any chat.
You don't see chat?
Last thing I see is Mary waved. Oops.
It might be at the bottom. The last thing that Mary said is it's like no more than a teaspoon at a time.
Oh, I can't see any of that.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, some people like using scoops. If you've got, cookie scoops, or if you've got like, just to make sure everything's even. So I've got an ice cream scoop here. I'm going to go ahead and use that to put it into the muffin tin. You're going to fill these up about 2/3 of the cup full. And I will actually also show you, I forgot to do, Mary. I forgot to wear an apron. That's why I looked down and I'm like, I'm covered in flour again. I forgot to wear it. Is it too late to put on an apron?
Now you're going to have a dirty apron and a dirty shirt.
I know. Okay, maybe not.
But hey, if it's cute, you should put it on.
I'll be a good person and show you what you're supposed to do, aka put on an apron. I can't believe I forgot an apron. Well, no, I can't believe I forgot an apron. As usual. Thank you, Mary. You're right. Now I feel like it's too late. I mean, I gotta be honest with you guys. I think it's way too late. but ta-da! I put flour on my apron. Even though I didn't wear it earlier, I wiped my hands like this when I was putting it on. And look, now I've got flour all over it. Like I've been using it the whole time. So I have my cupcake liners. I'm going to take my scoop. And I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, about 2/3 cup full. Which looked about, that's like a lot. That actually is a lot more than I thought. It's probably like half of that. There we go. That's better. So I'm going to take a little bit. I'll take a little bit out of that one in a second. just to show you what's happening. I'm starting with like a little bit of like half of a scoop. That's how I'm distributing. And like I said, it can go up to 12 depending on how full you make your cups. And add in, I need more muffin cups. And then you're gonna, I'm eyeballing it. If you're more precise about it, you can be like weighing it or you can be using, but I'm eyeballing at the moment. I think I'm gonna, ooh, making a mess. All right, and I've gotten to the point where now I'm at the bottom of my batter.
You made half the recipe, Jules?
What was that?
Did you make half of the recipe?
For this demo, I'm doing half. So that makes me have about, it looks like I'm gonna have 8. And the reason why, just as an FYI for everybody, the reason why JulieAnn's doing half is everyone that knows JulieAnn knows that JulieAnn bakes a lot, and she has, at least right now, I've got another cake in my fridge at the moment, so I'm trying to be.
Why am I not surprised?
I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be good. So this is going to be about 8. I'm gonna have to fix that one. That one's a monster. And then while Jen is filling up her cups, I'll go ahead and also talk about other things that we can do with these. And I'll demo. So we're gonna go ahead and do a drizzle, and we're gonna do a cream cheese frosting for these. But let's say you don't want to do any of those things right now because you're just not feeling it. You want to go ahead and maybe you want it to be more of like a breakfasty muffin, which you can do. So you can go ahead and do a crumble or a topping or not anything at all and just as this is right now. And yes, everyone, I see this monster I created right here that I need to take from. Put some of that in this one. That one is definitely like all the way full. We're gonna see all sorts of different heights. And the reason why, home baking at its best. The reason why you try to do it evenly so that they're all the same height when they come out and they're all the same. But because I'm eyeballing this and I'm totally doing this home baking style, I are definitely gonna have, some of them are gonna be bigger than others, I can tell already. But let's go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and take this real quick. I'm just gonna tap it out just to try to even out. My batter is fairly thick, so I'm gonna have to smooth it out with a spatula, I think, a spoon spatula. Flat spatula. Aha, I found it. So I'm gonna smooth out the tops. And actually, once I smooth out the tops, I'll actually see how full they are. And like I told you guys, I think I definitely did more than 2/3 full. Like I maybe achieved one that was 2/3 full, and the rest of them are like ginormous. So JulieAnn's gonna try to even this out.
Mine are the same. Mine are all different.
Like, some of them are a little bit different. Some of them I'm like, that's definitely more batter than there should be in there, but is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. And again, we're home baking. This is stuff that, you know, you're gonna eat yourself and it doesn't have to be precise. That's the beauty of it. It's for you. I don't know why I changed my voice like that. Mary, you can explain why I changed my voice like that. I'm just figuring it out. I haven't even had sugar yet. All right, so I talked about how you can make like a crumble at the top if you want. You can leave these as is. We're gonna go ahead and pop in a drizzle while these are in the oven. But if you wanted to make a crumble, fairly simple. Basically, it's just mixing butter, flour, a little bit of like oats, some sugar. You can use cornflakes and have a crunchy topping. They do that at a bakery here in Brooklyn called Ovenly. It's delicious. Doesn't sound like it would be, but oh my God, it's delicious when they do that because it gives a nice contextual contrast. Is that a good word to use? Contrast to the muffin. So I went ahead and I mixed, like I mentioned. I'm gonna go ahead and show you. I just popped everything in a Ziploc bag and mixed about 2 tablespoons of cornflakes, 2 tablespoons of oats, I've got a 1/4 cup of flour. I'm about to add 2 tablespoons of like room temp butter into this. Some people like adding a dash of cinnamon, a little bit of salt. And then there's about 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. So I'm going to put that all into a container. And grab some butter. So my butter is room temp. And I will show you. I just want to take the butter into pieces and just mix it into all the other ingredients and just combine it. And what it's going to do is it's going to create kind of like this crumbly mixture. And I just put everything in a Ziploc bag, and I'm being terrible and just like using my hands to mix everything
Jules, are
together.
your cupcakes already in the oven? I'm going to put mine in.
You can put yours in the oven. I'm showing people crumble.
Okay.
And it's 17 to 22 minutes. I'm going to do half crumble on them, and then we will show you how to do frosting for the others. And again, this is if you just don't want to, you just don't feel like frosting today for like your cupcakes, and maybe you want it to be more like muffiny. So I've got my crumble mixed, and like I said, because I was super lazy, I put it all in a Ziploc bag. Whether that's the right way to do it, it's probably better to put it in a bowl so you can actually have a little bit more context. I did wash my hands though, so you guys can feel a little bit better about what I'm about to do because I'm just sticking my hand in here. Okay, so I went ahead and I mixed all those ingredients together, and I added a little bit of butter. And as you can see, it has gotten into this kind of like what I consider like a crumble, like little pieces like this, like little crumble. And we're gonna take these pieces, and I'm just gonna dump it on top of some of these cupcakes. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the ones that didn't have as much batter. And all we're gonna do is we're just gonna sprinkle it on top like so. I'm not planning on icing these ones. These ones are going to be my experimental crumb ones. So I'm gonna dump. And again, you can put as much crumble as you want. I'm doing like probably about 2 handfuls or 2, so this is like 2 tablespoons about on each one, but you can do as little or as. I'm gonna just do. I feel like this one.
That looks good.
Loud. One will hope that they're. I'm just gonna press that down a little bit, and then I might have put too much crumble because I'm only doing a couple, but I would say about a tablespoon or 2 topping on the top. All right, and then the rest of these I'm gonna leave alone. Although I did put a little bit of crumble just messed into this one. Okay. The other ones I'm going to leave alone because we're going to frost those, and I'll show you how to do that. Half of them, I'm going to take this, the entire thing is going into my oven. Medium rack, 17 to 22 minutes. I'm going to wash my hands again, and then let us talk drizzles and frosting. So now you're like, what am I going to do for the rest of these things? I just realized I didn't have another bowl, so I can show you what you can do with the rest of these things. All right, so we can go ahead and do 2 different types of frostings for this. I'm going to grab my timer because I completely forgot to do my timer. Like I said, about 17 to 22 minutes. I'm going to put it actually at 15 just to double check it. Sometimes I don't trust my oven, guys. I got to be honest with you. So, Jen, yours is in the oven?
Yep.
All right, cool. So the frosting is fairly simple. You can use an electric mixer if you'd like to do the cream cheese frosting. The drizzle does not require any of that stuff at all because all it is a little bit of lemon juice and powdered sugar. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now, if you just want to do the drizzle, we'll talk about the different stages of drizzle. I'm just going to grab a little small plastic container here so I can show you the different ways we're going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and grab my powdered sugar. I've got regular confectioners or powdered sugar. It's the white one. All right, and we're going to do, I always err on less before more. So I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons. I have my tablespoon. Where have you disappeared? 2 tablespoons. Aha, found you. 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. And I'm just going to place that into a bowl. Like, I've just got this plastic container. You can put it in like a regular bowl like this. And like I said, start with 2. Now, if you're planning on just doing the drizzle as your main component of the frosting, you probably were going to err on more powdered sugar, but I will get to that momentarily. But if you're using it as more of like a syrup to brush the top of the cake with, then we're going to do the cream cheese frosting. I would start with just 2 tablespoons. So 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. We're going to go ahead and take a teaspoon. Sounds minimal. Trust me, it's probably not. Teaspoon of lemon juice. And I'm just going to pour the lemon juice directly into my powdered sugar. If you've got a whisk or a spoon or a fork, that's all you need. You're just going to go ahead and mix that together. I'm just going to take a fork, actually. There's not a lot in here, so I'm going to take a fork. And I'm just going to mix that. Now, you're noticing it seems to be a little thick. Let us add more lemon juice. All right. So mine is fairly thick. It's like it hasn't even really mixed in. It's kind of crumbly. I'm going to take another teaspoon of lemon juice, and I'm going to add in to my drizzle one more time. Another teaspoon of lemon juice. And the reason why we're adding it slow is because I don't want this to be so sweet. And now it's actually very wet. And adding more liquid will definitely make it thinner. So I start with just 1. So mine is really runny. Let me show you guys what this is looking like. My frosting is really runny like that. That means I need to add more powdered sugar. And this is where I was saying we start with just a little bit. I'm going to add another tablespoon of powdered sugar into my mix. And we're going to play this game until we get the texture that we want. So if you're trying to make it more like a donut glaze on top of your cakes, then it should probably be thicker. If you want it to be more of a base, like a syrup, like a simple syrup, it needs to be thinner. So I'm at 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, and I'm going to show you the texture right now. It's just dripping like this. This is good for just glazing the top over before we put the frosting in. If you're just using this drizzle, I would add in a little bit more, about another tablespoon of powdered sugar, because you want it to be a little thicker. It's not going to be thick like frosting thick, but it needs to, when it slows down, like this is dripping too fast still. So I'd add in another tablespoon or so. And if you were just using this as simple syrup, you don't want to use powdered sugar, you can use cane sugar, and we can make it completely like a simple syrup just with lemon juice. And we're just going to base the top of the cakes with that drizzle. So again, if you want it just to be this icing, this drizzle icing, I would add in another tablespoon of powdered sugar, make it a little bit thicker, until it drips slower down the fork. I'm actually kind of good with this texture a little bit. I'll add in a little bit more. Add in a little bit more. I'm going to start, like I said, start slow. Go tablespoon. Mix that in. And this is going to, watch this be too thick. All right, so I'm at 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and I am at the drizzly stage that I think this is good for icing. All right. It's pretty good. Now I'm going to leave that alone. And again, if you're just using this, you add in more powdered sugar, right? So until it's the texture that you want. Some people like it a little bit thin. Some people like it a little bit thick. It's going to dry, and when it dries, it'll dry into the cupcake. So consider that as well. All right, for those of us who want to do cream cheese frosting, a quick demo on the cream cheese frosting. You can use an electric mixer for this. If you don't have an electric mixer, that's okay. You can do this by hand as well. If your cream cheese is room temp, your cream cheese should be fairly soft. We're using about 4 ounces if you're making about 12 cupcakes. If you're making less than that, you can err on half. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. So I've got my block of cream cheese here. It's fairly soft. I'm just going to go ahead and dump this into a bowl. Cut that into a couple pieces. I'm doing this haphazardly, by the way. It's so not professional of me. I'll show you what this looks like. I'm just cutting it in the bowl like this. I should have cut it before I stuck it into my bowl. I'm starting out small. I'm starting with just 2 ounces of cream cheese because I only made half, but you should be using about half a block of cream cheese. It's about 4 ounces. If you don't have cream cheese on hand, but you've got mascarpone, you can use mascarpone. If you don't have mascarpone, maybe you've got a little bit of ricotta cheese in your fridge. Use a little bit of ricotta cheese, and it will also work as well. If you're using ricotta, I would add in about 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup of heavy cream, just to break up the ricotta cheese a little bit. But I've got some cream cheese in here. We're going to add in some butter. This is going to stabilize. So we're making a cream cheese buttercream in this sense. You're going to use about.
So let me see what yours looks like. Did you just mix it up?
Oh, my cream cheese? I'm still on the cream cheese. I haven't added the butter. I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter. This is regular salted butter, so you don't have to add in salt. I can get this. This is the part that JulieAnn did not prep, so she has to cut her butter. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my butter pieces into, I just cut that up into small pieces. My butter into my cream cheese like so. And then I'm also going to add in, I start with 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and then I sweeten it as I go along when we mix it. And you can add that in right now. So I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons. And then as we go along, you can add in almost up to over, 1.5 cups, depending on how thick you want your cream cheese frosting. And then to this, I'm going to go ahead and add in about a teaspoon of vanilla. Teaspoon of vanilla. There you go. I'm going to try to use my whisk. Let's see how handy that is. And I'm just going to mix this all up. You can also use a spoon. And I'm just going to go ahead and my whisk might have been a bad choice because I didn't cut up my cream cheese enough. I might just use a spoon, I'll be honest. Faster with an electric mixer, hand mixer. But if you don't have any of those things, you just want to use elbow grease, and you've got the time. Spoon and or fork works perfectly with here. Just, I would smush it up, and I would just mix it together. It's going to be very, very creamy, by the way, and I'm going to show you. So I'm just using a spoon right now, and we're going to taste this as we go along. It should be fairly thick. This is a thick frosting. It's not going to be like a very delicate-ish buttercream, which is also why I think you can get away with not using it too much sugar. So like I said, I started at, this is only just, I'm only making half. So because I'm showing you guys the drizzle as well. To be honest, I actually think I might add in all my cream cheese. About, like I said, about 4 ounces.
Yeah, because this doesn't look like very much.
Yeah, I might actually add in all 4. I started with just 2, but I'm going to add in, and I'm going to try to be better about it and cut in a little bit more. So 4 ounces is probably a good number. So, like I said, 4 ounces of cream cheese, 2 tablespoons of butter. Jen and I both started at 2 ounces. That's why you're seeing us add some more. And then a teaspoon of vanilla. And I started with 2 tablespoons, and we're going to taste test as we go along. And I said that I do that because I want to make sure the sweetness level is to my liking. I'm a big person on not making it so sweet. I think there's a lot of sweet elements in it already. I just added more cream cheese. I'm gonna add another tablespoon powdered sugar. And like I said, you can use an electric mixer to mix it. I'm just using good old elbow grease and a spoon. Or you can use a fork. And you just want to make sure it's incorporated. And the reason why the electric mixer is so much better at this is because, especially if your elements are not room temp, it would beat it so much better and faster. But we've got time, so I'm using my elbow grease. And again, if you want a smoother consistency, mixer would be a good way to go. All right, so now I'm going to go and taste this a little bit just to see. I need to mix this a little bit more, mix it better. Everyone that's doing this by electric mixer is like, I'm done with this part already, guys. Why is it taking you guys so long? Taste it. If it needs more sugar, keep on adding sugar, just a tablespoon of it at a time. But it should be fairly thick. In about a second, I might actually bust out my electric mixer. I'll be honest.
I'm using a spoon too.
I know. I was like, I can do this with a spoon. I just forgot how long it takes.
It's not too bad. Yeah.
I'm just so patient. That's actually pretty good.
How many tablespoons of the powdered sugar did you put?
I have 3 tablespoons in right now.
Okay.
The reason why you keep on adding powdered sugar is not just for the sweetness, it's also for making the frosting a bit thick. But mine is pretty thick. I don't necessarily think it needs to be thicker than that. So really now it's just about sweetness level. It has nothing else to do with anything else. I'll wash my hands over. Actually, I think it's pretty good already. But also my sweet tooth is not the way that it used to be. So some people might actually want to add more.
I think I have 4, but I think I put a little bit more cream cheese because I have more muffin or more cupcakes.
Yeah, and actually I think I might add maybe half a tablespoon more. So I'm almost at 4. That seems like a good number, about 4.
Yeah, it actually tastes really good. Does it look like a...
What is it? Ooh,
Does
that
that
looks
look like...
great. That looks
Does that look like enough for 12 cupcakes?
Yeah, it just depends on how high you want to frost. Some people like frosting a lot, and some people just like doing a dollop. So depending on how you want to do it. And then we can also talk about the way that you want to frost. If you have piping bags and you want to bust out your piping bag, this is a great opportunity to use a frosting in a piping bag. If you don't have piping bags, you can take a Ziploc bag, like a regular plain old Ziploc bag, and cut the corner of it. And you can use that as a piping bag. Or you can just take a knife or a flat spatula, something like this, and frost the top. And because I like the look of when they're kind of not so professional looking with like really lovely like rosettes and things like that. I actually like when it's sort of smeared on top. I think it gives it a little bit of a nice rustic homey look. I like that homemade look. It feels like someone took the time to do it, you know? So
yeah.
So like I said to you guys as I'm mixing it, so my frosting is getting a little bit looser the more I mix. And if you had an electric mixer in hand, you've definitely already gotten to this stage like 3 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. But since Jen and I are doing by hand, just to make sure that the butter and the cream cheese is really incorporated in. And like I said, the reason why you keep on adding powdered sugar is because you want it to be thick and you want it to be to that sweetness level. But if you think it's already, this is fairly thick already. So I really am just adding frosting, or rather powdered sugar to my frosting based on sweetness. And I actually think I'm at 4 tablespoons, and I feel like that's perfectly fine for me. I might bust out my electric mixer just to see what it would look. Everyone at home is like, JulieAnn, you keep saying that. I am. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna grab my electric mixer. I'll take my hand mixer now. Like any respectable home baker would at this point, who actually has the tools, who are like, why are you doing this, JulieAnn? It makes no sense. But like I said, if you don't have any of these tools at home, like if you don't make a lot, if you don't bake a lot, like why would you have a mixer at home? Why would you have a stand mixer? Why would you, like these are the kinds of things that you don't usually use and don't need. You can do all this by hand. Everyone used to do this by hand before all these things were invented. So, like I said, you just have to put a lot more elbow grease.
Oh my gosh, I just looked at my cupcakes. They look so delicious, but they're not ready yet.
How are they doing? Oh, you know, my timer went off, so I should probably look at mine.
I think I put mine for 19 minutes and it needs a few more minutes.
I think mine, I stuck it at 15 and then that's when my timer went off. I'm going to do it for another 2 minutes because I don't trust my oven. So I'm going to do it for another 2 minutes. They smell great. They look great. I'm really excited. Messiness of my kitchen. And you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to plug in my phone. This is what happens when JulieAnn hasn't done this in a while. I'm like, my battery's about to die, guys. Mary's just shaking her head at me at home. She's just like, what's happening? We used to be a professional operation, Mary. What happened here? What happened here? I know. Julie.
I would hate to say JulieAnn happened, but you
I know, that's true. That actually is true. Jen has known me for so long. She's like, this doesn't seem out of character for you.
I don't know why, but San Francisco going the wrong way just popped into my head. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, Jen. And for anybody that cares to know this story, San Francisco, to be fair, has a lot of one-way streets. All right, and you know, for people that normally don't drive a lot in San Francisco, they can get confused by one-way streets. And I feel like this is one of the many incidences of the time that JulieAnn drove down a one-way street. But I definitely drove down a one-way street before, where the cable cars were coming down the street from that direction, and that was.
You forgot to say you were going the wrong way.
I was going the wrong way. I was going the wrong way. Thank you, Jen. Keeps me honest. I was going the wrong way. And I knew that I was going the wrong way when I saw the cable car coming at me from that direction, which made everyone in the car very nervous. Don't worry, we survived and it was fine. All right, so I've got my electric mixer out now just so I can show you guys the difference of what happens when you use an electric mixer. So I've been doing this by hand. I feel like it's creamy enough and the texture is fine, but if you put the electric mixer in, look how fast that went. Done.
Yeah.
It will definitely break it down a little bit more. And now you can see that my frosting is now, it feels a little bit thinner. That's okay. This is actually good enough. I like it kind of creamy. I don't like it very stiff. If you think that it needs, the sugar level is fine, but you want it to be stiffer, you can stick the frosting in the fridge for about 10 minutes and it'll make it a little stiffer if you don't feel like adding more sugar. But again, the reason why you add more sugar is for it to be a little bit thicker to stabilize the frosting. But I think I'm gonna lick. That's a paddle. It tastes delicious. I like it. I don't like lots and lots of sugar because I feel like we have enough sugar in the cupcakes. This is so unlike me to say that, by the way, considering that like I love sugar in all forms. But we're trying to be better, trying to be good here. I'm washing my hands, be sanitary. I just totally licked my fingers. And now the frostings are done. So we've got two different options of frosting. I showed you the crumble. You wanted to do it that way. And then when the cupcakes come out, unfortunately, we can't frost them immediately. They have to cool down a little bit. But I'm going to go and check on my cupcakes because my timer went off. I should have looked at it earlier. I think they're a little bit underdone, but look how purple they got from the blueberry powder.
Those are heck of purple.
They're definitely purple. So I'm just going to take, you can take a toothpick. I've got a skewer. I'm just going to go ahead and poke the middle. If it comes out clean, they're done. This is completely clean. Another one. Mine are good. Mine took 17 minutes. Exact. This one came out a little bit. And now I'm poking them all just because I'm paranoid. The ones with the cornflake topping look great. I'm very excited about that.
Here's mine.
Mine are done.
But it took 22 minutes.
Okay, so mine took about 18. Oh, those look great, Jen. Those look beautiful.
The blueberry juice is like running on them. It looks good.
All right, so I'm gonna let those cool down. I'm just gonna sit them out onto the top of my stove right there. And the reason why we don't want to frost them immediately is because the frosting will just melt right off because the cupcake is hot. Now, if you are planning on using the drizzle and the cream cheese, let me show you real quick what's happening. While the cupcakes are warm, we're going to drizzle. If you're going to do both, if you're just using the drizzle or if you're just using the cream cheese, then wait until they're cooler. But if you're going to do both, what I like doing, what I personally like doing is I like poking holes into my cake, and I like pouring a little bit of the syrup or the drizzle into it, so that way when you bite into the cupcake later, you'll actually get those pockets of syrup, and it also locks in the moisture. So you can use a pastry brush to do that, or like I said, you can poke holes. I'll show you both ways. I've got a handy dandy pastry brush here that I'm going to go grab somewhere in the recesses of my I had a pastry brush. I don't know what I did with my pastry brush. The noises you hear is JulieAnn looking for her pastry brush. Oh, wow. Mary, how we have fallen. I used to have all this stuff prepped. I have no idea what I did with my pastry brush, guys. I took it out earlier. I was prepped. Oh, my God.
JulieAnn.
I know I'm losing it. Everyone's just like, wow, JulieAnn, you just went really, really sad right there. I'm losing it. I had my pastry brush the whole time. Okay, so let me show you what you guys can do. I hope your kitchen's a little bit less chaotic than mine right now. So, per usual, I've usually made a mess. So I've made a mess. So I went ahead. My cupcakes are looking a little bit purple because I put freeze-dried blueberry powder that I crushed freeze-dried blueberries and made a powder. That's why they're this color. If you looked at Jen's is a nice golden yellow cake. So I showed you the toppings for the crumble, and I'll show you what that looks like actually right now so you can see them here. These are the ones that I put crumble on. These are the ones that I'm going to go ahead and utilize the frosting on. Now, like I said, do not put the cream cheese frosting on the cupcakes that are right out of the oven. They're super hot still. They might, in a few minutes, I'll actually take them out of the muffin tin because in some ways they're still cooking because the muffin tin is still warm. But if you're using the drizzle, I like to do two things you can do. I like taking a skewer or a toothpick and I like sticking a whole bunch of holes. No one's going to see if you're putting cream cheese frosting on this, okay? If you are not and you're just doing drizzles, I just don't do that because then everyone will see. I like poking a couple holes in the cake, the warm cake. And then I like taking a pastry brush, or if you don't have a pastry brush, you can go ahead and take a knife or a spoon actually would probably be better to go ahead and spoon it over. I like adding, and as it sits, it thickens. I think I might have mentioned that. So I'm gonna add a little bit more lemon juice to make this thinner. So you want it to be fairly thin. I added just a little bit more lemon juice because as it was sitting there, it got a little thick. So it's a little bit light. There we go. I like taking this and I like brushing the tops. And some of the frosting will drizzle in to, and you can see it now, it's going through the holes, sucking itself into the holes of the cake. And then That's what I like doing with that. If you don't want to go ahead and poke the holes in the cake, you can certainly just take this, and you can use a spoon or a pastry brush, it doesn't matter, and you can just go ahead and baste the top. Okay, so if you didn't put a lot of powdered sugar into your cake or into your drizzle, it's going to be really thin. See how it's not holding on? But also because the cake is warm. If you put more powdered sugar, over time, your drizzle will actually thicken a little bit more like a little bit thicker than a donut glaze, I would say. And that's when you would go ahead and smooth it on, because as the cake cools, the icing will also harden. Okay, so like I said, you've got two different options here. I am basting. I poke some holes. I'm going to do half and half again. I'll show you again. I'm going to take my skewer and I'm just going to go ahead and poke holes into my cake. I'm trying to be gentle about it, but I can tell my cake is nice and tender because the crumbs are just pulling up. It's starting to cool down too. I like just poking a whole bunch of holes. And again, I'm only doing this for the ones that I'm going to put cream cheese frosting on, because you're going to see a whole bunch of holes if you don't. Then I'm going to take, again, I'm going to take my, what I consider like a little drizzle syrup, and I'm going to just baste or pour with a spoon, either way, while it's still warm. I'm going to pour that on top. Okay, now let me show you what would happen if I did it thicker. So see how thin this is now. If you wanted it to be thicker, again, this is where you add in your powdered sugar to make it thicker. And if you wanted to, like for maybe some of the ones, like let's say you did an oat topping earlier and you wanted it to be a little more texturized than that. These are all the different ways that you can go ahead and do that. So I went ahead and I added a little bit more powdered sugar into my lemon juice to make it thicker. And I'll show you what that looks like. And again, as it cools down, the icing, this really simple icing, is going to thicken and harden. So I've got, this is now a little bit thicker when it's dripping. I'm going to take that, and so these are the cornflake ones that I just did. If you wanted to, you can leave these as is, or I sometimes take, I'm just using a fork, you can go ahead and drizzle the tops like that with a little bit of icing as well. And again, this is when it cools down, the icing will harden a little bit. You can just do that. You don't have to. It's perfectly fine the way that it is, but you don't have to. And again, once it cools down, it'll harden a little bit. Better to do that when everything is cool. I'm just, for our purposes, I'm just showing you, just because it's going to melt right off if it's too warm. And you can see already, see how the icing is a little bit hardened already. You can just see a gloss on the top from where we put the icing. I'll put that quotation marks, the icing. So this is going to be the base, and the reason why we're doing this is because, and again, you don't have to necessarily poke holes in it. I like doing that. You can just go and also just baste it like this. If you're just using regular icing, once it's cool, you can just go ahead and, or you can use a spoon or a knife. You don't have to necessarily use a pastry brush. I'm doing it to be a little bit more precise. And then you can go ahead and either frost it with some cream cheese frosting on top, or you can leave it as is like this. Or you could just have it plain, if that's your life today. But let me go ahead and pull this out so I can show you. It's still a little bit warm. I can show you the difference. So we can see now in this cake, see how the icing or the glaze that I just did, the little like drizzle glaze, is starting to cool down, and you can see that it's starting to harden. So if you'd actually had a thicker glaze and this was cool already, this would actually have a deeper kind of a glaze icing. Harder to see because it's purple, but if you did something like Jen's, it would be a little bit better. And then again, you can also keep it plain, like I'm showing you here. So what we would do is you would go ahead and frost everything once it's cooled down. And again, the reason why you would do that is because you just don't want the frosting to melt right off. I would go ahead and store these once everything is cooled down. You can go ahead and store them at room temperature in an airtight container, probably about 2 or so days. You can also stick them in the fridge and then let them come to room temperature. Those will last a couple more days longer than that. And if you just feel like you want to devour them at will, you can take all of these once they're cooled down, freeze them. Yes, we can do this. Freeze them, stick them in the freezer, and they're probably going to be good for at least a few weeks, maybe up to a month in the freezer, and then all you do is you pop them out, let them come to room temp, or stick them in like in a toaster oven for like a minute or so, and they would be just like they came out of the oven. So that is it. Any questions out there about like the horrendous mess? That's a good thing that it's only showing you this much, because I swear to God, like my kitchen's always a mess afterwards. But that means you did good work. If your kitchen's a mess, I like to believe it means that you've done good work. So,
agreed.
Jen, how did yours turn out?
Good. This is one with the glaze. I'm gonna put frosting, but can you see it?
Yes. Ooh, that looks delicious. Those look great. So, and again, these are the ones that I will show you guys. And then once we get them frosted, if you're trying this recipe, please let us know how it goes. Go ahead and tag us in photos. Tag Jen, tag me, tag Mary. Let me know how everything worked out for you, which versions you like better, which versions you like less. Did you use freeze-dried blueberries? Did you not? And yeah, let me know how it turned out. I'd love to see it. Unless anybody's got anything else to say. Jen, any other questions? Any thoughts as we wrap this up?
No, they look delicious. Thank you.
They look delicious. I'm really excited. Sometimes I can't wait. I don't know about you, Jen. Sometimes I can't wait to try them. I like eating them warm. But I know if I want actually the real experience with the frosting and everything, I'm going to have to wait just a little bit longer. So I will definitely let everyone know how they turned out once I get the frosting on them completely. So, but Jen, we finally did one of these. I'm so stoked that you were able to come in and join me and bake chaotically with me in the kitchen as we do.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was so great to have you, and to have Mary per usual chat in the comment section. And everyone, thanks for joining us on this Sunday. I have my days right today. On this Sunday, while we went ahead and made lemon blueberry cupcakes, and Jen and I showed you all the different ways that you can go ahead and ice them. So everyone, enjoy your Sunday, the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you again on another Baking with Friends. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Mary.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Have a good day.